Have you ever felt that unsettling sensation that there is something much deeper about your consciousness than conventional science can explain? An inexplicable connection to the universe that transcends your physical body? If so, you may be intuitively perceiving what Michael Talbot discovered through decades of meticulous research, a revelation about the true nature of the human soul that is so extraordinary that many scientists prefer to ignore it completely. Michael Talbot, visionary author of The Holographic Universe, delved into the deepest mysteries of quantum physics and neuroscience to reveal a startling truth. Your soul is not just an abstract spiritual concept, but a measurable quantum reality that exists beyond the limitations of conventional spacetime. A truth that, when fully understood, fundamentally transforms our conception of death, consciousness, and the very nature of reality itself. I will reveal 3 revolutionary discoveries about the quantum soul that Talbot uncovered, based on rigorous scientific research that is finally converging with ancient spiritual wisdom. The third discovery is so disturbing to the dominant materialist scientific paradigm that it continues to be actively suppressed in many academic circles, despite the growing evidence supporting it. To truly understand these extraordinary revelations, we first need to understand the revolutionary foundation of Talbot's research. Inspired by the pioneering work of quantum physicist David Bohm and neuroscientist Carl Pribram, Talbot proposed that the entire universe functions as a giant hologram, where each part, no matter how small, contains the information of the whole. Even more impressively, he demonstrated that our brains also function as holographic processors, not merely interpreting reality, but actively participating in its creation. What makes this perspective so revolutionary for our understanding of the soul? In a holographic universe, consciousness is not merely a byproduct of brain activity confined to the skull. It is fundamentally entangled with the very fabric of reality at a quantum level. This entanglement explains mysterious phenomena such as out-of-body experiences, past life memories, and post-death communications that have been extensively documented but ignored by conventional science because they don't fit into the materialist paradigm. Talbot's first extraordinary discovery about the quantum soul is what researchers now call non-locality of consciousness. Rigorous experiments have documented that human consciousness can demonstrably access and process information beyond normal limitations of space and time. This phenomenon is grounded in the quantum principle of non-locality, the proven ability of entangled particles to instantly influence each other regardless of the distance separating them. Dr. Dean Radin, chief scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, has conducted decades of meticulously controlled experiments, demonstrating the ability of human consciousness to obtain information that would be impossible to access through the conventional 5 senses. In one particularly impressive study, volunteers exhibited measurable physiological responses to stimuli before those stimuli were randomly selected by a computer, effectively responding to future events before they occurred. These are not isolated results or statistical anomalies. Meta-analyses combining hundreds of similar studies conducted in laboratories around the world show a cumulative effect that is more than 6 trillion times unlikely to occur by chance. As Talbot realized, these findings cannot be adequately explained by the current model of consciousness as simply a localized function of the brain. Instead, they point to a fundamental property of consciousness that transcends physical limitations, exactly what many spiritual traditions have described as an essential quality of the soul. Talbot's second impactful discovery is the transtemporal memory field, evidence that human consciousness can access information and memories that go far beyond a single lifetime. This provides a scientific basis for phenomena such as apparent past life memories, which have been extensively documented but routinely dismissed by conventional science. Dr. Ian Stevenson, professor of psychiatry at the University of Virginia, spent over 40 years rigorously investigating more than 3,000 cases of children who reported detailed memories of past lives. In many cases, these children provided dozens or even hundreds of specific verifiable details about deceased individuals they could not possibly have known, including full names, complex family relationships, and intimate details that were known only to a small circle of people close to the deceased, What makes Stevenson's work so extraordinary is his methodological rigor. He not only documented these children's claims, but meticulously verified the details through historical records and interviews with multiple witnesses. In many cases, the children also demonstrated behaviors, phobias, talents, and even birthmarks that corresponded to traumas or characteristics of the deceased person they claimed to have been. Talbot recognized that these phenomena are inexplicable within the dominant materialist paradigm, but perfectly consistent with a holographic model of consciousness. If consciousness is not limited to the physical brain, but exists as a pattern of information in the larger holographic field, then it does not necessarily end with the death of the physical body. Instead, these patterns of information may persist indefinitely in the holographic field, potentially interacting with new physical systems, such as a developing child's brain, that are tuned to similar information frequencies. This is not a purely theoretical hypothesis. Pioneering quantum physicist David Bohm proposed that beyond the explicate physical reality we directly experience, there exists a deeper, implicate order, a realm of pure information and potentiality that gives rise to the physical world. In this model, what we perceive as individual consciousness can be understood as a localized subspace of a much larger consciousness field that exists primarily in the implicate order, not limited by the constraints of space and time that define our physical reality. Now, Talbot's third and most disturbing discovery: autonomy of consciousness. Evidence that consciousness can continue functioning coherently even when the brain is demonstrably inactive. This discovery is so challenging to the dominant scientific paradigm that many researchers have faced significant institutional resistance when investigating it, despite its profound significance. Dr. Sam Parnia, Director of Resuscitation Cardiopulmonary Research at the New York School of Medicine, has conducted the largest study ever on near-death experiences in cardiac arrest patients. His findings are extraordinary. A significant percentage of patients who survived clinical death reported detailed conscious experiences that occurred while their brains were completely inactive, with no measurable electrical activity or blood flow. Even more impressively, in some documented cases, these patients were able to accurately recall events, conversations, and visual details that occurred in the resuscitation room while they were clinically dead, information that would be impossible to obtain through physical senses in that state. In one particularly striking case, a patient was able to precisely describe a rarely used defibrillator that had been brought into the room while he was in cardiac arrest, including a specific detail about its interface that surprised even the medical team. The significance of these findings is profound. If consciousness can operate coherently when the brain is completely inactive, then it cannot be merely a product of brain activity, as the materialist paradigm insists. Instead, as Talbot proposed, the brain may function more like a receiver or transducer, processing and limiting a vaster consciousness field rather than generating it. This view is consistent with the analogy proposed by psychology pioneer William James, who suggested that the brain may function as a prism, filtering and refracting a consciousness that exists primarily in another dimension of reality. When the prism is removed, as in physical death, consciousness doesn't disappear, but expands beyond the limitations the brain imposed. The implications of these three discoveries are nothing short of revolutionary. Together, they provide substantial scientific evidence for what many spiritual traditions have asserted for millennia: that human consciousness, or soul, is not merely an epiphenomenon of physical matter, but a fundamental reality that transcends the material body and survives physical death. But why are these discoveries so threatening to the scientific establishment that many researchers are reluctant to acknowledge them? The answer lies in the profound philosophical and existential implications they present. If consciousness is fundamentally non-local, trans-temporal, and capable of autonomy beyond the physical brain, then the materialist paradigm that has dominated Western science for centuries, the view that all subjective experience is merely a byproduct of brain activity, is fundamentally inadequate. This would require nothing less than a complete revision of our scientific understanding of reality, comparable to the Copernican revolution that displaced Earth from the center of the universe. Moreover, these discoveries raise profound questions about ethical responsibility, meaning, and purpose that many scientists would prefer to avoid. If our consciousness is not merely a temporary flash of neural activity destined for extinction, but a localized expression of a larger consciousness field that persists beyond physical death, then our choices and actions may have far deeper and more lasting consequences than the materialist paradigm suggests. How can you explore the quantum nature of your own soul and potentially validate these extraordinary discoveries through direct experience? Here are 3 practices based on Talbot's discoveries. The first practice is non-local consciousness expansion. This technique allows you to directly experience the non-local nature of your consciousness, its ability to access information beyond normal limitations of space and time. Begin by sitting comfortably in a quiet space where you won't be disturbed. Close your eyes and breathe deeply for several minutes, allowing your mind to calm. Now, visualize your consciousness as a sphere of light centered in your body, but not limited to it. With each breath, imagine this sphere gradually expanding, first filling the room around you, then the building, the city, and eventually encompassing the entire planet. As your consciousness continues to expand, set a clear intention to access information that would be impossible to obtain through your 5 senses. This could be information about a distant location, a loved one elsewhere, or even a glimpse of a future event. Maintain a state of open receptivity, allowing impressions to arise naturally without forcing them or analyzing them critically. After the practice, immediately write down any impressions you received, no matter how vague or seemingly irrelevant they might appear. Over time, you may begin to validate some of these impressions, discovering that they contain accurate information you could not have obtained through normal sensory channels. Maria, a skeptical university professor, practiced this technique for 30 days as an experiment. In the 3rd week, she received a clear impression of her brother falling from a ladder, something she later discovered had actually happened at that exact moment, hundreds of miles away. More significantly, she also saw an unusual object near the ladder that her brother later confirmed was present, but that she had no way of knowing existed. The second practice is transtemporal memory retrieval, based on Talbot's discovery of the transtemporal memory field. This technique allows you to explore potential connections to past lives or potential futures that exist as information patterns in the larger holographic field. For this practice, lie down comfortably and place your attention on the breath until you reach a deeply relaxed state. Now, imagine yourself standing before a long corridor with countless doors extending in both directions. Mentally set the intention, I ask to access memories or information from other lives that are relevant to my current growth and understanding. Begin walking down the corridor, allowing yourself to be drawn to a specific door. As you open it, you enter a scene from another life or time period. Observe with open curiosity, noting details of the environment, clothing, relationships, and most importantly, the emotional patterns and lessons being experienced. The most powerful aspect of this practice is not necessarily validating specific historical details, although this sometimes happens, but recognizing recurring patterns or themes that remain relevant to your current life. These represent the information patterns in the holographic field that your current consciousness remains connected to. Carlos, an artist who struggled with an irrational fear of drowning so severe that he couldn't even take baths, used this practice and experienced a detailed account of dying in a shipwreck in the 18th century. After fully exploring and processing this memory, his fear of water dramatically diminished. More surprisingly, he subsequently discovered historical records of a shipwreck that matched his experience in many details, including the unusual name of the ship he had seen during the practice. The third and most profound practice is consciousness autonomy experience. This advanced technique allows you to directly experience your consciousness's ability to function independently of the limitations of the physical brain. The essence of what many traditions call astral travel or consciousness projection. For this practice, choose a period when you can be completely undisturbed for at least an hour. Lie on your back with your arms comfortably at your sides. Begin by breathing slowly and deeply, focusing your attention on the center of your forehead. As you relax more deeply, Become aware of the feeling of weight in your physical body. Now, visualize an energetic version of yourself, identical to your physical body, floating about 6 inches above your physical body. Focus intensely on this image while continuing to physically relax. At some point, you may begin to feel unusual sensations, vibration, buzzing, or a floating sensation. These are indications that your consciousness is beginning to operate independently of exclusive focus on the physical body. As these sensations intensify, set the intention to completely separate your consciousness from the physical body. Many people find it helpful to imagine gradually floating upward or rolling to one side. The key is to maintain a calm, focused mental state throughout the process. For those who achieve a complete separation, the next step is to visit a distant known location and observe specific details that can be subsequently verified. This provides objective validation that the experience was not merely a vivid dream or hallucination. Anna, a physician with rigorous scientific training, practiced this technique as part of a research study. After successfully separating her consciousness from her physical body, she visited a colleague's office in another building and observed a specific document on his desk with an unusual header. Upon returning to her body and later verifying, she confirmed that the document, with exactly that header, was indeed on the desk, having been placed there after she had entered the study room, making it impossible for her to have this knowledge through conventional means. It is important to note that while these practices can provide powerful and potentially validating experiences, they are not merely exercises in curiosity. As Talbot repeatedly emphasized, the true significance of the quantum nature of the soul lies in the profound implications for how we live our lives. If your consciousness is truly a localized expression of a larger consciousness field that transcends linear time and physical death, then your choices, actions, and personal development acquire a much deeper meaning. You are not simply accumulating experiences destined for extinction, but participating in a process of conscious evolution that transcends a single lifetime. As Talbot wrote in his unpublished notes, the greatest irony may be that, in denying the reality of the soul in the name of scientific rigor, Western science has inadvertently limited its own ability to understand the true nature of reality. The same rigorous scientific methods that built our understanding of the physical world are now revealing an aspect of reality that many scientists are reluctant to acknowledge: that consciousness is fundamental, not derivative. As more scientists and researchers begin to openly recognize and investigate these discoveries, we are potentially on the verge of a profound transformation in our scientific understanding of consciousness, one that finally reconciles advanced science with the deepest insights of spiritual traditions. The big question is not whether the quantum soul exists. The scientific evidence is becoming increasingly undeniable. The real question is, how will you live differently once you fully internalize the truth that your consciousness is not merely a temporary phenomenon confined to this body and this life, but an expression of a much vaster, deeper, and more enduring reality? As Michael Talbot might say today, the universe is not only stranger than we imagine, it is stranger than we can imagine, and our own consciousness may be the deepest mystery of all.